And action.
Bonjour! I am back from Paris and I have so much to share with you, not just about this sweater and the original that was in the exhibition, but so much more. So don't go away. Okay, so most of you probably know that Emily in Paris is all the rage. Even my cousin and his wife, who live on the Rue de Rivoli, just across the street from the Louvre, are watching it. I'm going to show you some of the locations where it's filmed, but I want to bring you up to date. I have some knitting to show you, I have some acquisitions. So this is going to be a long episode. Fasten your seatbelts. It's not going to be a bumpy flight because I have my wings. I was invited into the cockpit because, after all, I'm such a big influencer. You people can help me, Give this thumbs up, start liking, start commenting. Let's go here. I want to get more invitations like that. So, in order to fly this plane, these guys gave me a quick crash course. And I guess I did okay because I earned my wings. Before I left, I told you what my plans were. And as Franklin Habit told me, in Paris, darling, plans go up in smoke. Our plans went up in smoke. I was so totally taken by surprise. I had a whole plan to meet Matthew Brown, the button expert, who I interviewed in episode, I don't know, I'll put a link to it. We were going to meet at a small museum outside, about an hour outside of Paris, to look at mother of pearl buttons and other objects made of mother of pearl. I knew that the museum had strange hours, so just a few days before we were leaving New York, I checked the website to confirm the hours because Matthew was going to meet us there. Lo and behold, their website said, unexpectedly, we are closing from January 2nd to January 13th. We were going on January 8th. Hello. I had also booked a very charming bed and breakfast not too far from where he lives so that I would be able to easily get to his house to go into his attic and shop for buttons for some of you and for myself. Ixnay, none of that happened, unfortunately. So at the last minute, I was scurrying around to make another plan. Life happens and coincidences also happen. I was watching a French film, an Eric Romer film, Les Rendezvous de Paris, which is a really cute film. There are three different vignettes of couples who are meeting up on dates in Paris. And the last vignette, this couple was approaching a hotel. It was the exact hotel, I'm speaking French accent now. It was the exact hotel that I had booked the additional 2 nights that we were supposed to stay out in the countryside. The hotel was in this charming square with a beautiful fountain in the center, next to a very historic building. I've never seen anything like this before. It's a touchscreen, but I'm out in open air on the street. If I touch number 8, it shows you an atelier d'artiste, an artist studio. Okay, 3. This is Picasso in his atelier, in his studio. The building is Le Bateau Lavoir, where a lot of famous artists live in Montmartre. After landing at Charles de Gaulle Airport, my husband and I took several train connections to arrive at the metro station called Abbesse. And I wanted to show you a picture of the mural that's inside that station. Because we were in Montmartre and it's way up on a hill, like towards the highest part of Paris, the staircase spiraled around and around. It was a very long walk up. And I think to keep people entertained during that walk, they put this lovely mural. Then when you arrive at the top street level, you're very close to one of the sites where Emily in Paris did a shoot. So of course I had to run over. There were hundreds of people in front of this wall, but it's the I love you wall where I love you is written in every language. A short climb up a hill took us to Place du Théâtre and Sacré-Cœur. Also, this darling little restaurant where a placard on the side of the building told us that Woody Allen had filmed one of his films there. Well, another coincidence is my son and I were filmed by Woody Allen for this very film. It's an unusual Woody Allen film because it's his only musical. It's called Everyone Says I Love You. Part of it was filmed right here in New York, and the rest of it was filmed in Paris and Venice. Alan Alda, Julia Roberts, Ed Norton, Tim Roth, and Woody himself. Oh, also Goldie Hawn. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, try and find it. It's not one of the real well-known ones, but it's a lot of fun because of the music and people sing who you don't normally hear singing, including Woody himself. Besides the museum that I previously mentioned, my other mission for this trip was to get to a museum called MAD, Musée des Arts Décoratifs, the Museum of Decorative Arts, where this month is closing the exhibition called Shocking, which is a retrospective of Elsa Schiaparelli, who in 1927 designed this sweater. She had had a business previously, but I think it went into some financial trouble. And when she revived her business, this was part of the first collection that she returned with. It was a knitwear collection. Prior to that, sweaters were used for sports, for tennis, for golf. But this was the first time that sweaters were actually going to be part of fashion. So you may have seen some of the episodes where I did a knit along with some other knitters to knit what we call here in the States the Bowknot sweater, but I've also seen it referred to as the faux bow sweater. It's trompe l'oeil. It's not really a bow, as you can see. It's just the way you do the intarsia to get it to look like a bow. The original one in the museum, surprisingly, was on loan from the Philadelphia Museum of Art, where I have never seen it because when they did their Schiaparelli exhibit, I wasn't knitting yet. I wasn't so interested in her. Now, of course, I am. So the original is done with black and white, and it's done in a different technique where both colors are carried along throughout the entire sweater. So where this is white, there's black running behind it. It wouldn't be solid white like this. And I was able to see that in the original. A marvelous exhibit. I'll show you a bunch of pictures here. Another coincidental thing is that as I entered the exhibit, I saw above the door that this was the Christine and Stephen A. Schwartzman Gallery. That may not be a name that's familiar to you, but New Yorkers will know the 42nd Street Library, the main branch of the New York Public Library, has been renamed due to a huge donation from Mr. Schwartzman. He happened to grow up outside of Philadelphia, near where my family lived. He's also made a very large donation to the local high school, which is unusual. People don't often give $25 million to a high school. Those are the kinds of gifts that universities get. He's donated to universities as well. That was a fun surprise to see an American sponsoring that gallery. My trip to Paris wouldn't be complete without visits to several of the local yarn shops. We visited La Droguerie with Matthew Brown, where they not only had yarn, but they also had buttons. I bought adorable buttons for my cousin's sweater. And they sell yarn by weight there. I didn't purchase anything there because I wanted to see what the other shops had.
Billie, did you want to see that black and white one?
I do.
We also went on to Lil Weasel, which is in a beautiful passageway. Paris has several of these, well, I don't know how many, but a number of these passageways with beautiful shops in them, and some are more elegant than others. This is sort of middle of the road. Lil Weasel has shops on both sides, and they have quite a nice selection. The third shop that I visited was Les Tricotures Rouen. Where I did make a purchase. The owner of the shop gave me one of these bags, which I would like to offer to my viewers, along with the Eiffel Tower stitch marker. As I've done in the past, I will do a random drawing from comments on this video. So if you'd like to have this bag and the stitch marker mailed to you, do comment. I was really hoping to acquire a French yarn, but with the projects I have in my queue, I just wasn't able to match up the color and the weight of the yarn that I needed. I'm planning this year, after I finish a lot of UFOs, to knit a jacket by Carol Feller. And this yarn is worsted weight, which is what that jacket calls for. I was pretty excited because, first of all, the guy in the store, the owner of the store, is just a doll, and his English is quite good. So if you're in Paris, don't be intimidated to go there, and he's very, very helpful. It's called Lore, and it says it's 100% Kent lamb's wool, sourced and produced in England. But on the back, I read that it's 100% lamb's wool from the Romney sheep breed. I don't think that I have ever knit with a yarn that wasn't merino. So this is my first foray into other sheep breeds, and I'm really excited about that. It's 100 grams and 250 meters, 273 yards. My colorway is called Confident. So I have acquired 6 skeins of this, not for stash. There's a specific garment in mind for it, and don't look for me to be knitting this anytime soon. It'll probably be much later on in 2023 after I reknit the red sweater for the Rink and the Lynx, and after I finish these 2 projects, which I'll talk about momentarily. Before I talk about my works in progress, I wanted to share with you my other acquisition, which was this vintage hat from the 1940s. I have a favorite little vintage shop that I have visited before in Paris, and I looked around. She had lovely things. It's always hard for me with clothing because I don't have a 26 or 28-inch waist. And shoes are hard too, because even with contemporary shoes, I have trouble. So accessories are usually good for me, but I scanned the shop and I really wasn't seeing anything this time. After my husband and I walked out of the store, I turned back to look at the window and I saw this hat and I thought, oh my God, that hat will just go great. I mean, even though, you know, I've knit a little hat that matches this, it never hurts to have a second hat. I know I've shown you this jacket before. I still haven't added on the sleeve, which is knit, incidentally. But next month at Vogue Knitting Live, I intend to finally purchase the just right button for this. And I think that will motivate me to attach the sleeve, knit the belt, and put the finishing touches on this. But here I have 2 different options that I think work very nicely with this hat. Ironically, this sweater was knit with completely different yarns than the sweater I'm wearing, but I seem to gravitate to these teals and aqua colors. I have a moratorium on knitting with these colors, by the way. That's why I'm going with gray. In my last episode before I left for Paris, I had mentioned that I planned to take the Spencer with me on the trip because I thought it would be easier knitting. But once our plans got turned topsy-turvy, I changed my mind about the knitting. We were really on a mission to pack light so that we didn't have to check luggage. So I opted to take this instead of this. They look pretty similar. They are both 1 cone. This cone has a lot more yarn on it. but I'm hoping to eventually connect the front and the back of the sweater and maybe start knitting in the round. And I was afraid to do that while I was on vacation because I thought it'd be hard to try it on, it'd be hard to measure it. I just wanted to be able to knit without thinking too much. So I ended up leaving this at home, but I have made more progress on it. And I opted to bring this with me. So this was in my handbag. I finally purchased a handbag for myself that's commodious so I could put my passport and granola bars and my protein drink and knitting and headsets and all the other things that I like to have on the plane with me. So this takes up very little space, and I've been trying gradually to advance and make progress on this because it is such slow going and it's coming along. It might be hard for you to tell, but I would say that this is about 18 inches. So, I still have a ways to go if I want to be able to wrap it around my neck and do something elaborate with it. But it worked. It was great to have it on the plane. I didn't do a terrible amount of knitting on the way over because I wanted to sleep a little bit, On the way back, I was able to do more knitting. So it's coming along slowly. But I think with all the walking that we did, I didn't gain any weight. What we saw, though, was a feast for the eyes. We were at the Sèvres Porcelain Museum, which showed not just objects made there in the factory behind the museum, but also pottery from all other parts of the world. There were South American pottery, Asian pottery, and then, of course, other French and Italian, German. So wonderful, wonderful museum with an enormous vase, the largest vase ever made there, which reduced me to tears. I turned to my husband and I said, "Do you realize this is the only place in the world where you can see this?" There were tons of Art Deco things, which in case you haven't seen me before, you might not know that Art Deco is really my passion. So along that theme, we also saw an exhibit at the Gobelin Tapestry Museum, which had Art Deco furniture, Art Deco tapestries, carpets, lamps, unbelievable exhibit. And then, of course, there were Deco things mixed in with the Schiaparelli. So this was an Art Deco feast. Also, let me not forget to mention the Cité de l'Architecture, which is the architecture museum, had a temporary exhibit on how Art Deco in France influenced Art Deco in the United States. And then after they came and showed us some of their techniques and style, we kind of reinvented it, applied our American spin on things, and sent it back over to France. This exhibition highlighted the interaction between French architects and American architects during the Art Deco period. Before World War I, good taste was considered the domain of the French. As a result, French experts were invited to share their knowledge at American universities and to design buildings in keeping with European standards. American students, however, crossed the Atlantic to immerse themselves, but the Great War put an end to that. A Beaux-Arts Institute of Design was established in New York City in 1916, inspired by the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. Sculpture, mural painting, and interior decoration were taught alongside architecture. The students who won the Paris Prize were able to join the top class at the École in the French capital. In 1923, a permanent American school in France was opened, the École des Beaux-Arts de Fontainebleau, hosting 70 U.S. students a year in the palace that was the last residence of Emperor Napoleon I. Architects of two of America's most famous Art Deco skyscrapers, the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, that's William F. Lamb of Shreve, Lamb and Harmon, and William Van Allen, had studied at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. Americans who were unable to attend the famed 1925 Paris Expo had the Ile-de-France and the Normandy ocean liners as floating showcases of Art Deco. Hollywood became obsessed with the style. As you can see here, there's a use of an Art Deco vanity in this film. A truly American form of deco, called tropical deco, was taking hold in Miami Beach. The Chicago exhibition, A Century of Progress, in 1933 featured ultramodern pavilions showcasing for the very first time the streamlined aesthetic, a cousin of the Art Deco movement, which soon made its way into all sorts of everyday objects. Defined by simple lines and curves inspired by the hulls of ocean liners, automobiles, planes, and locomotives. It delighted a new profession, designers. A number of French architects were transmitting their new ideas at various American universities. Jacques Carlu taught at MIT in 1924 and taught Lloyd Morgan, who built the Waldorf Astoria, Donald Nelson, who designed the Chicago and Dallas exhibitions, and Leon Arnal, who taught at the University of Minnesota and designed the Fauché Tower in Minneapolis, the only Art Deco building designed by a French architect. Around every corner, there's something magical. It's just the most exquisite city. I love it there so much. My cousin is saying they really should make you a French citizen already. This was my 17th trip there. And I was very pleased to see that I'm not the only person who's looking on my phone or looking at my little red book of maps to figure out which streets are connecting. Even the Parisians are doing that because it's pretty complicated. And there are a lot of little neighborhoods that you just may not know. Even in New York, where I've lived for many decades, there are still parts of the five boroughs that I've never been in. There are parts that I'll probably never be in. So if I decided one day to go to the South Bronx, I'm not going to know my way around. I am going to have to look at a map. I could just go on and on, but I think the pictures are going to say 1,000 words. So let me just start the slideshow. I'll insert some comments here and there. And look for the Emily in Paris locations. Comment below if you find any of them. Tell me which are your favorites. I hope you're going to enjoy this, even though admittedly the knitting content is a little on the light side this time. À la prochaine. See you next time, everyone. La Samaritaine, the 151-year-old grand dame of department stores, reopened in the past year after a 16-year facelift by LVMH, costing over $800 million. The 70,000 square meter complex of Art Nouveau and Art Deco includes the elegant peacock fresco seen here, which had been covered by paint in the 1990s. Filled with upscale brands and designed to offer a social experience in addition to the shopping experience, it includes a hotel, spa, nursery, 12 cafes, and restaurants. Sales staff are required to speak at least 3 languages.